She woke up that morning feeling excited and nervous all at once. The sunlight streamed through the window, and she could hear the soft sounds of the city outside. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, the day she would marry the person she loved. She had dreamed of this moment for years, imagining every detail from the flowers to the music to the way everyone would smile at her. She had worked so hard to make everything perfect, and now it was finally here. She got out of bed and went to the mirror. She took a deep breath and looked at herself. The dress hung beautifully on her, the fabric soft and flowing. She could see the excitement in her own eyes, but also a flicker of worry. What if something went wrong? What if the day did not go as planned? She shook her head, trying to push away the doubts. She reminded herself that everything had been planned carefully, and that there was no reason to worry. The house was buzzing with activity. Family members moved around, carrying trays of food and helping with final touches. Friends whispered and laughed softly, trying not to disturb the calm that had to be maintained. She walked through the rooms, taking it all in. The flowers were arranged just as she had imagined, the tables set perfectly, and the music ready to play. Every small detail that she had planned for months was in place. She felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. She wanted everything to be perfect because she wanted to feel that this day would mark the beginning of a happy life. She sat down for a moment, trying to calm her racing heart. She thought about the journey that had led her here. She remembered the first time they had met, the laughter, the late-night conversations, and the moments that had made her believe that this was the person she wanted to spend her life with. The memories were sweet, and her heart felt full as she thought about them. She felt a sense of certainty that she had never felt before. She believed that today would be the start of a new chapter filled with love and happiness. Time moved quickly, and soon it was time to leave for the ceremony. She took one last look around the house, her home filled with memories of preparation and anticipation. She stepped into the car, her dress flowing around her, and felt the weight of the day settle on her shoulders. She was ready, or so she thought. She smiled at herself in the mirror, telling herself that everything would be fine when they arrived at the venue. The sight took her breath away. The place looked even more beautiful than she had imagined. Flowers lined the aisles, and the soft light created a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Guests began to arrive, their faces filled with excitement and smiles. She felt a surge of happiness seeing everyone she loved gathered to celebrate this day. She could hear the soft murmur of conversations, the laughter of children, and the occasional clinking of glasses. It all felt like a dream. She stepped out of the car, holding her bouquet tightly. Her heart pounded with anticipation. She walked slowly toward the entrance, her eyes scanning the crowd for familiar faces. Friends waved, family members smiled, and the photographers captured every moment. Everything seemed perfect. She felt a sense of pride and joy, knowing that this day would be remembered forever. She reminded herself to enjoy every moment, because these were the memories she would carry for the rest of her life. As she reached the altar, she saw him waiting there. He looked handsome in his suit, his face calm and composed. She felt a rush of love and happiness. All the nerves, all the preparation, and all the excitement came together in that moment. She thought about the vows they had practiced, the promises they would make to each other, and the life they would begin together. She smiled at him, and he smiled back. Everything felt right. Everything felt perfect. Then he spoke. His words were soft, but they cut through her heart like a blade. He said that he could not go through with the marriage. He said that he could not promise her the life she wanted because he was not ready, and he had been hiding the truth. She felt her world crumble around her. The crowd gasped, and silence fell over the room. She could hear the faint sobs of family members, the whisper of guests, and her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She could not believe what she was hearing. She felt frozen, unable to speak, unable to move. The life she had imagined, the dream she had held so close, seemed to shatter in that instant. She tried to speak, tried to ask him why, but the words would not come. Her mind raced, trying to understand how everything had gone wrong. She looked at him, searching for the person she thought she knew, but all she saw was a stranger. The love she had believed in, the future she had planned, vanished in a moment. The room felt cold, and she felt a heavy weight on her chest. She wanted to disappear, to run away from the pain, but she could not move. The guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to react. Some offered sympathetic glances while others whispered to each other. Family members tried to comfort her, but she could feel the emptiness inside growing. The hours of preparation, the months of planning, the anticipation and excitement, all of it, felt meaningless now. She felt humiliated and exposed in front of everyone she loved. Tears streamed down her face, and she could not stop them. She wanted to scream, to cry out, to make sense of the chaos. But all she could do was stand there, trembling and broken. Finally, she turned and walked away. Each step felt heavier than the last. The crowd parted, giving her a clear path, but she did not notice. She was lost in her own world of pain and disbelief. She left the venue, stepping out into the fresh air, feeling a strange emptiness. The sky seemed gray, and the world felt distant. She could hear the faint sounds of the city, but they did not reach her. She was alone with her heartbreak. Carrying a weight that felt impossible to bear, she sat down on a nearby bench, trying to catch her breath. Her mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, and loss. She thought about all the dreams she had held, the life she had imagined, and the future that had been promised. Now it seemed impossible, and she did not know how to move forward. She felt small and powerless, overwhelmed by a pain she had never experienced before as past, and the sky began to darken. She did not move, did not call anyone, did not think about food or rest. She just sat there, letting the tears flow, letting the grief take over. She remembered every moment leading up to this day, every smile, every laugh, every hope. They all seemed distant now, like memories from another life. She felt like she had lost not just a fiancé, but a part of herself. She wondered if she would ever feel whole again, she would ever trust or hope for happiness. As night fell, she finally stood up, her legs trembling. She walked slowly back to her home, the streets quiet around her. She felt empty, drained, and exhausted. The house was dark and silent, a stark contrast to the excitement of the morning. She entered, closing the door behind her, and sat down on the floor. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to find comfort in the loneliness. The day that had begun with so much hope had ended in heartbreak. Leaving her to face a reality she had never imagined, she thought about sleep, but her mind refused to rest. The images of the altar, the words he had spoken, and the faces of the guests replayed in her head. She cried until she could not cry anymore, until the tears left her numb. She felt like she had been pushed into a world she did not recognize, a life she had not chosen. She wondered how she would ever rebuild, how she would ever find happiness again. And if she could ever trust herself or anyone else in the stillness of the night. She made a quiet promise to herself. She did not know what the future held, and she did not know how she would move forward. But she promised that she would try, that she would survive, and that she would find a way to heal. The pain was overwhelming, but she knew that it was only the beginning of a journey that would test her strength, her courage, and her heart. She closed her eyes, finally allowing herself to rest, knowing that tomorrow she would have to begin the difficult process of picking up the pieces of a life that had been shattered at the altar. The days after the wedding were heavy and silent. She stayed mostly in her room, wrapped in blankets and memories, trying to make sense of what had happened. The world outside continued as usual, but for her, time seemed to have stopped. She thought about the people she had trusted, the dreams she had built, and the life that had been promised. Everything felt fragile and uncertain now. She wondered if anyone truly understood the depth of her pain, or if they only saw her as the woman whose wedding had failed. Family members came to check on her, bringing meals and speaking softly. They did not want to upset her further, but their presence reminded her of how alone she felt. Friends sent messages and tried to call, but she could not find the energy to respond. The walls of her home felt like both a sanctuary and a prison. She could hide from the world, but in doing so, she also hid from herself. She spent hours lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how quickly life could change. One moment, everything seemed bright, and the next, it was gone. At first, she could not imagine a life without the person she had planned to marry. She remembered the excitement, the shared dreams, and the promises that now felt empty. The pain was constant, a dull ache that never left her. She found herself replaying the moments in her mind, questioning every detail, wondering if she had missed signs or if something could have been done differently. She wanted answers, but they did not come. She realized that some questions had no answers. She had to find a way to live with the uncertainties. Slowly, she began to take small steps. She started by leaving her room for brief walks around the neighborhood. The fresh air felt foreign, and the sounds of life made her feel both connected and distant. She noticed the flowers in the gardens, the children playing, and the quiet rhythm of daily life continuing around her. It was a reminder that the world did not stop, even when her own life felt like it had collapsed. Each step was a small victory, a way of telling herself that she could keep moving forward. Even when it felt impossible, she also began to focus on her work. The office had always been a place of structure and purpose, and returning gave her a sense of normalcy. She buried herself in tasks, emails, and meetings, using busyness to avoid the emptiness she carried. Yet even at work, her mind wandered, and she felt the weight of her loss. Colleagues noticed her quietness, and some offered gentle support, but she preferred to handle things alone. She realized that healing would be a personal journey, one that could not be rushed or guided by others. Her thoughts often returned to the idea of hope, but it felt distant and fragile. She wondered if she would ever feel excitement or joy again. The idea of trust seemed complicated, almost impossible. She had given her heart fully to someone, and it had been rejected at the most public and painful moment. She questioned whether she could open herself to love again, or if she would remain closed off, guarding herself from further heartbreak. The struggle between fear and hope became a constant part of her daily life one day. While walking near her neighborhood park, she noticed a small community center. The building was modest, with a sign inviting people to volunteer or join activities. On a whim, she walked inside. She was greeted with warm smiles and a friendly atmosphere. People of different ages and backgrounds were working together on projects, sharing laughter and helping each other. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of curiosity and connection. She asked about volunteering, and they welcomed her immediately, signing small tasks to help organize materials and assist with events. At first, she hesitated to engage fully. She worried that her sadness would be obvious, that people might judge her, or that she would not fit in. But the environment was kind and non-judgmental, and slowly she began to participate. She helped with preparing meals for children, organizing donations, and setting up activities for the community. The work was simple, but it gave her a sense of purpose. She realized that even in the midst of her pain, she could contribute, and that small contributions could have a meaningful impact on others. As the days passed, she became a regular at the center. She noticed a single father who brought his children for after-school programs. They were struggling in their own ways, and she saw the exhaustion and worry in his eyes. The children were lively but seemed to lack guidance and care in some areas. She started helping them with homework, reading stories, and engaging in small conversations. At first it was casual, just simple kindness, but she began to feel a bond forming, quiet connection that was comforting and unexpected. The single father noticed her presence and offered thanks for her help. They spoke occasionally, exchanging friendly words and small gestures of support. She did not expect anything beyond casual interactions, but over time, she saw a gentleness and sincerity in him that reminded her of the values she had always cherished. She found herself looking forward to seeing the children, helping them solve problems, and sharing small moments of laughter. Each interaction reminded her that she still had the ability to make a difference in the lives of others. And that feeling gave her strength. Her involvement with the community center began to change her perspective. She realized that while she had lost one path, there were still many ways to find meaning and connection. She began to see herself not just as a woman who had suffered heartbreak, but as someone capable of resilience, care, and compassion. Helping others allowed her to step outside of her own grief and recognize the struggles and joys of the people around her. It was a subtle but powerful reminder that life was not over, that love could exist in many forms beyond romantic relationships. She also started to take better care of herself. She returned to old hobbies, such as reading and painting, that had once brought her joy. She spent quiet mornings writing in a journal, reflecting on her experiences and emotions. The process was slow, and some days felt heavier than others, but gradually, she began to feel a sense of control over her life again. She discovered that healing was not linear, that there would be setbacks, but that every small step forward was meaningful over time. The bond with the children grew stronger. They started seeking her out, asking for help with homework, or inviting her to join games. Their laughter and energy became a source of comfort and happiness. She noticed how much she enjoyed their company and how much she could give to them in return. The single father, seeing her dedication, expressed gratitude, and slowly trust developed between them. It was a quiet, steady connection, built on kindness, care, and mutual respect. She realized that these relationships were filling a space in her heart that she had not expected through her involvement at the center. She met other volunteers and families, each with their own stories of struggle and resilience. She listened to them, shared in their experiences, and learned that everyone carries unseen burdens. The community became a place where she could process her own grief while contributing to the well-being of others. She understood that life did not end with heartbreak, and that new forms of family and connection were possible, even in unexpected circumstances. Months passed, and she began to notice changes in herself. She felt stronger, more grounded, and more confident. The pain of her failed wedding had not disappeared, but it had transformed. She could think about that day without being overwhelmed by despair. Instead, she saw it as a turning point, a moment that had led her to a deeper understanding of herself and the world. She realized that the life she thought she had lost had made room for something different, something meaningful. And she began to embrace that possibility. She learned to balance her own needs with the needs of those she was helping. She discovered patience, empathy, and resilience that she had not fully known before. The simple acts of caring for others, listening, and sharing time became a source of fulfillment. She realized that family was not always defined by blood or marriage, but by presence, love, and support. Each day at the center reinforced this understanding and helped her rebuild a sense of purpose in her life. By the end of the year, she had become an integral part of the community. People looked to her for guidance, support, and companionship. She had found a rhythm and a place where she belonged. The single father and his children had become like family to her, offering connection and care that she had not expected to find. She understood that while she had lost a wedding and a fiancé, she had gained something far more valuable: a network of relationships that nourished her heart and soul. She reflected on her journey often, realizing that the process of healing had not been easy. There had been moments of doubt, sadness, and fear, but each challenge had strengthened her. She had discovered that resilience comes not from avoiding pain, but from facing it and finding ways to move forward. She had learned that life can take unexpected turns, and that what seems like an ending can sometimes be the beginning of a new and meaningful chapter. As she looked ahead, she felt hope, cautious but real. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she had the strength and courage to meet them. The experience of losing everything at the altar had been devastating, but it had also opened her eyes to new possibilities. She had discovered that family, love, and purpose could be found in places she had never imagined, and that she had the ability to shape her own path forward. She arrived at the community center that morning with the same quiet determination that had carried her for months. The familiar smells of cooked meals, fresh paper, and paint filled the air. Children ran past her, laughing and calling out greetings. She smiled, feeling a warmth that had become familiar over the weeks of volunteering. Today was no different in routine, but somehow, she sensed that something was about to change. The father of the children she often helped arrived shortly after she did. He carried a stack of books and a tired but grateful smile. They exchanged polite greetings and moved to their respective tasks. She watched him interact with his children, offering guidance and support with patience and care. There was a quiet strength in the way he handled daily challenges, and she felt a deep respect for him. Watching him made her think about her own struggles and the resilience that people could show when life. She had become more involved with the children, helping them with schoolwork, listening to their stories, and offering encouragement. She noticed that the children looked forward to her presence, running to greet her and share their small victories. Their joy became infectious, bringing her a sense of fulfillment she had not expected. For the first time since her wedding day, she felt needed in a way that mattered, and it gave her a quiet strength one afternoon. While helping the children with a craft project, she noticed the father standing nearby, observing her work. Their eyes met, and for a moment, there was a sense of understanding that went beyond words. She realized that their connection had grown stronger, built not on romance, but on trust, respect, and shared purpose. She felt a small flutter of hope, not for love, as she had imagined before, but for connection that felt real and sustaining. She continued to volunteer, dedicating more time to organizing activities, preparing meals, and offering guidance to families who came to the center. Each act, no matter how small, reinforced her sense of belonging. She discovered that helping others was not just about offering support, but also about finding healing for herself. The sense of purpose she felt in these moments gradually replaced the emptiness that had consumed her after the wedding. The father began to involve her more in his family life. He asked for advice on school projects, sought her opinion on activities, even invited her to join the children on small outings. At first, she hesitated, unsure of how far she should engage. She had learned to protect herself from disappointment, and the idea of becoming attached to a family again made her nervous. But as she spent time with them, she realized that the bonds they were forming were genuine and mutually held. Nurturing the children started seeking her out independently. They would run to greet her as she arrived, asking for help with homework or to share stories about their day. Their laughter and energy became a source of comfort and joy. She noticed that being present for them allowed her to forget, even briefly, the pain of her past. She felt alive in ways she had not felt for months, rediscovering emotions that had been buried beneath sadness and fear as she became more entwined in their daily lives. She began to see patterns of resilience and struggle. She noticed the small victories: the child who finally read a book aloud without hesitation, the father who managed a difficult situation with patience, the quiet moments of connection during shared meals. These moments reminded her that life was made up of countless small actions, and that each one had meaning. She felt inspired to continue contributing, understanding that her presence mattered in ways she could not have anticipated. Her bond with the father grew stronger as well. They began to share quiet conversations, speaking about challenges, hopes, and the little triumphs that often went unnoticed. There was no rush, no expectation, only a slow, steady building of trust. She found herself drawn to his sincerity and quiet strength, appreciating the man he was rather than expecting him to fill the space of the one she had lost. The connection was gentle, comforting, and stabilizing. She started to recognize the ways in which her own heart was healing. The pain of her wedding day had not vanished, but it had become less consuming. She could think about the event without feeling paralyzed by grief. Instead, she saw it as a turning point that had redirected her life toward a path she could not have imagined. The experience of losing one dream allowed her to embrace another, one that was unexpected but no less meaningful. Over time, she noticed subtle changes in the children. They were more confident, more open, and more willing to share their emotions. They laughed more freely, asked questions, and sought guidance with trust. She felt proud of the small contributions she had made to their growth. In nurturing them, she nurtured herself. The act of giving care and attention allowed her to rebuild the parts of herself that had felt broken. The father began to rely on her for advice and support in ways he had not before. He shared his concerns about work, the children, and the challenges of daily life. She listened, offering insight when she could, and simply providing presence when words were not necessary. She realized that relationships were not always about dramatic moments or grand gestures, but about consistent, steady support that created trust and safety. She also began to rebuild her own life outside the center. She returned to hobbies and activities she had neglected, finding joy in creativity and self-expression. She took walks alone, reflected on her journey, and allowed herself to dream again, but in smaller, more manageable ways. The focus shifted from the life she had lost to the life she was creating, step by step, Day by day, her days at the center became a rhythm of engagement, reflection, and connection. She noticed how the children and father had begun to depend on her presence. She felt a sense of responsibility and honor in that role. She realized that she had found a place where she mattered, where her actions had consequences and her care could change lives. It was a feeling that she had longed for, and now she had found it in the most unexpected of places one day. After a long afternoon of activities, she sat quietly with the father while the children played nearby. They shared a simple conversation about the challenges they faced and the small joys that made life meaningful. There was a comfort in the silence, a mutual understanding that did not need words. She realized that she was no longer defined by her loss, but by her ability to engage with life, to care for others, and to find strength and connection. As the weeks turned into months, she noticed her own transformation. The grief that had once consumed her had softened into a quiet wisdom. She could face the memories of her wedding day without being overwhelmed. She understood that life could be unpredictable, and that loss did not mean the end. It could mean a redirection, a chance to find new forms of love and belonging. She felt gratitude for the unexpected path that had brought her here. She began to see the potential for a life filled with connection, care, and mutual support. The bonds she had formed with the children and the father were not built on obligation, but on genuine affection and trust. She recognized that family could take many forms, and that love was not always romantic. It could be found in shared moments, consistent presence, and the quiet assurance that someone cared. Her confidence grew, and with it, a sense of stability. She could look at the challenges of life with a clear mind and an open heart. The lessons she had learned about resilience, compassion, and patience became integral to her identity. She realized that the experiences she had endured were shaping her into a stronger, more empathetic person. She could offer care and guidance to others because she had learned to nurture herself in the process. Relationship with the father continued to evolve naturally. There was no rush, no pressure, only the steady development of trust and understanding. They shared responsibilities, celebrated small victories, and offered support when challenges arose. She appreciated the quiet strength and reliability he brought into her life, and she felt a sense of belonging that she had never expected to find after the heartbreak of her wedding day. Through her work at the community center, she began to see the world differently. She noticed the small acts of kindness that often went unnoticed, the resilience of people facing daily struggles, and the beauty in simple connections. She realized that life was not defined by a single moment of loss, but by the ongoing choices to engage, care, and contribute. Each day became an opportunity to rebuild, to nurture, and to find meaning in unexpected ways. By the end of the year, she had become an indispensable part of the community center. Her presence was valued, her care appreciated, and her efforts recognized. The father and children had become an integral part of her life, offering connection and stability that she had once thought impossible to find. She understood that while she had lost a wedding, she had gained something far more enduring: a network of relationships built on trust, care, and shared experience. Reflected on her journey often, realizing that the path to healing had been neither straight nor easy. There had been moments of doubt, sadness, and fear, but each step had strengthened her. She discovered that resilience came not from avoiding pain, but from facing it and finding ways to move forward. The experience of losing one dream allowed her to embrace another, one that was unplanned, unexpected, but deeply meaningful. She felt hope, quiet but real, as she looked toward the future. Life would continue to present challenges, but she had found strength, courage, and purpose. The bonds she had formed, the care she had given and received, and the connections she had nurtured had created a foundation for a fulfilling life. She had learned that family, love, and belonging could be found in the most unexpected places, and that healing was possible even after the deepest heartbreak. She woke up early that morning feeling the familiar warmth of the sun streaming through her window. The routine of her life had changed, but in ways that made her feel alive. The grief from her wedding day was no longer as sharp, though it lingered like a shadow in the background. She stretched and took a deep breath, thinking about the day ahead at the community center. Each day now held a sense of purpose she had never anticipated. She arrived at the center to find the children waiting for her. Their faces lit up at the sight of her, and she felt a rush of happiness that had been missing from her life for so long. They ran to her, shouting greetings and sharing little stories about their morning. She laughed softly, feeling a connection that had grown stronger with every passing day. The bond she had formed with them was genuine and comforting, a quiet reminder that love could take many forms. The father was there as well, organizing activities for the children. They exchanged a brief smile, a silent understanding passing between them. There was no need for elaborate words. Their connection was built on consistency, trust, and mutual respect. She began her tasks, preparing materials for crafts and helping the children with homework. Every small action seemed significant, every interaction meaningful as the day went on. She noticed the subtle ways the children had grown. They were more confident, more willing to ask questions, and more eager to engage in activities. She felt proud of their progress and grateful that she had been part of their journey. She realized that the presence she had offered, the time and care she had given, had helped shape their growth. It was a feeling of fulfillment that filled a space in her heart she had long thought empty. The father approached her later, quietly asking for advice on a situation with the children. She listened carefully, offering suggestions and sharing her observations. He nodded appreciatively, acknowledging her insight. Their conversations were no longer just casual exchanges. They had become a partnership built on respect and understanding. She felt a sense of belonging, a place where her voice and presence mattered during a break. She stepped outside for a moment, enjoying the fresh air. The city was alive around her, people going about their routines, children playing, the distant hum of traffic. She thought about how different her life had become from what she had imagined. The wedding day that had once seemed like the pinnacle of her happiness was now a distant memory. In its place, a new chapter had begun, one that offered connection, purpose. An unexpected joy. She spent the afternoon helping the children with a project. They worked together quietly, concentrating on cutting, pasting, and arranging materials. She offered guidance, encouragement, and gentle corrections when needed. The children responded with enthusiasm, seeking her input and sharing their ideas. She felt a sense of pride and fulfillment, realizing that these moments of engagement were teaching them more than just schoolwork. They were learning patience, collaboration, and care. The father joined them occasionally, offering support and praise. She noticed how the children responded to his presence, their respect and affection clear. Watching him interact with them deepened her appreciation for his dedication and love. She felt a quiet admiration for the way he managed challenges, balancing work, parenting, and the needs of the community center. It made her reflect on her own resilience and the strength she had discovered within herself as the day drew to a close. She helped clean up and organize materials. The children packed their belongings, said their goodbyes, and promised to return the next day. She watched them leave, feeling a warmth that came from knowing she had made a difference in their lives. The father stayed behind to discuss future plans for the center and his children. They spoke quietly, sharing thoughts on routines, activities, and the small improvements that could be made. She felt included in these conversations, valued not just for her work, but for her insight and perspective over the next few weeks. The bond between her, the children, and the father grew stronger. They began to trust her with personal stories, struggles, and small triumphs. She listened without judgment, offering empathy and understanding. In return, she found herself opening up more, sharing her own experiences in ways she had not anticipated. The relationships became a source of mutual support, a foundation for growth and healing. She started to notice changes in herself as well. The weight of her past grief had lightened, replaced by a sense of purpose and connection. She felt more confident in her abilities, more patient and more compassionate. The simple acts of helping, listening, and engaging with others had a profound impact on her own sense of identity. She realized that her life was no longer defined by loss, but by the relationships she nurtured and the contributions she made one afternoon. The father invited her to join the children on a small outing to the park. They walked together, laughing and sharing stories. She observed the joy in the children's eyes, the ease of their interactions, and the quiet moments of connection between the father and his children. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for being included, for being trusted, and for being part of a family that had formed in the most unexpected of ways. The outing continued with games, shared snacks, and quiet moments under the shade of trees. She joined in the laughter, felt the warmth of connection, and experienced the simplicity of joy. It was different from the excitement she had imagined for her wedding day, but it was genuine, grounding, and meaningful. She understood that happiness could be found in small moments in everyday interactions, and in the presence of people who cared for one another. As evening approached, they returned to the center. She helped the children with homework and prepared a simple meal. The routine felt comforting, a rhythm that brought stability to all of them. She noticed how much she had come to rely on these daily interactions, how deeply she valued the connections that had formed. She realized that the family she had found was not defined by blood or marriage, but by presence, trust, and care. The father and she spoke quietly after the children had gone to bed. They shared reflections on the day, discussed challenges, and planned for future activities. She appreciated the way he included her in these decisions, valuing her perspective and insight. The conversations were a reminder that relationships were built on mutual respect, collaboration, and understanding. She felt a sense of belonging that she had never known before. Over the following months, she continued to grow alongside the family. She became a steady presence in the children's lives, offering guidance, support, and affection. She noticed their growth, their increased confidence, and their ability to navigate challenges with resilience. She felt proud of their achievements and grateful for the opportunity to be part of their journey. She also noticed changes within herself. She had become more patient, more understanding, and more confident in her ability to handle life's uncertainties. The heartbreak of her wedding day had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it had opened the door to a new life filled with meaningful connections and unexpected joy through her experiences. She began to understand that family could take many forms. Love was not limited to romantic relationships. It could be found in the bonds of trust, care, and mutual support. She realized that the relationships she had built with the children and their father were just as real and valuable as any. Traditional family structure, the community center, became a place of growth, healing, and connection. She found satisfaction in her contributions, joy in the children's laughter, and comfort in the steady presence of the father. Each day reinforced the understanding that life could be rebuilt after loss, that meaning could be found in unexpected places, and that love could manifest in many forms. As the year drew to a close, she reflected on the journey she had undertaken. The path had been difficult, filled with grief, uncertainty, and self-doubt. Yet through it all, she had discovered resilience, purpose, and the power of human connection. She had lost a wedding, but she had gained a family that nurtured her heart, challenged her to grow, and offered love in ways she had never imagined. She understood that life's greatest lessons often came from moments of loss and adversity. She had learned to embrace uncertainty, to value the small moments, to recognize the impact of consistent care and presence. She had found strength, not in avoiding pain, but in facing it and allowing it to guide her toward meaningful connections. Looking ahead, she felt hope. The future was not predictable, but she had the tools, relationships, and inner strength to face whatever came next. She had learned that life was not defined by a single moment of heartbreak, but by the ongoing choices to engage, care, and nurture those around her. She had found a family in an unexpected place, and in doing so, she had discovered a life filled with purpose, connection, and love. She woke up one morning feeling a quiet sense of contentment. The days of pain and uncertainty were still a part of her memory, but they no longer dominated her thoughts. The life she had imagined on her wedding day was gone, but she had discovered something far more meaningful. She had found a family, a sense of belonging, and a purpose that gave her heart stability and joy. The morning light filled the room, and she stretched, feeling gratitude for the simple comfort of waking up and knowing that she had people who cared for her. The father and children had become integral to her life. Their presence offered her a sense of completeness she had not known she was missing. She dressed quietly, preparing for another day at the community center, where she felt her energy and focus could be spent in the most rewarding way upon arrival. The children ran toward her, their faces bright with excitement. They shared stories of their morning, little accomplishments, and small triumphs that brought her joy. She listened carefully, asking questions and offering encouragement. She realized that the laughter and energy of these children were not just a comfort, but a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. Even after loss, life could continue with joy and hope. The father greeted her warmly, and they exchanged updates about the children and the activities planned for the day. Their connection had grown into a partnership that was steady and supportive. He valued her insight and presence, and she appreciated his trust and guidance. They spoke quietly about practical matters, but the respect and understanding between them ran deeper than words. She felt a sense of stability that she had not experienced in a long time. The day at the center passed with moments of quiet learning and playful interactions. She helped the children with reading, crafts, and simple lessons, offering guidance and praise. She noticed their growth, how they became more confident, more expressive, and more trusting. Each small step they took was a reminder of her own journey from heartbreak to healing. She had learned that caring for others could nurture her own spirit, that love could be expressed in many ways, and that connection was a source of strength in the afternoons. She often took the children outside to play, enjoying the sunshine and the freedom of movement. They ran, laughed, and explored, and she joined them, letting go of the remnants of past pain. The joy in their faces reflected back to her a sense of purpose and satisfaction. She saw that her presence was making a difference, that she was helping them grow, learn, and feel safe. The feeling was profound and transformative. The father would occasionally join them, guiding and supporting the children, while also acknowledging her contribution. She noticed the quiet trust he placed in her, the reliance on her judgment, and the appreciation for her consistent care. This partnership became the foundation of a family that was not bound by conventional definitions, but by trust, respect, and shared experiences. She realized that this type of connection was just as meaningful as any she had imagined on her wedding day as the months passed. She became more involved in decisions about the children and the community center. She helped plan activities, organize events, and create a supportive environment for all the families involved. Her ideas were welcomed, her efforts recognized, and her presence cherished. She felt a sense of belonging and significance, knowing that her actions had a positive impact on the lives of those around her at home. She spent evenings reflecting on her journey. She wrote in her journal, documenting her growth, her thoughts, and the lessons she had learned. She thought about the wedding day that had seemed like the most important moment of her life, how losing it had led her to a path she could not have imagined. She understood that loss could redirect life in ways that ultimately led to fulfillment and happiness. She also nurtured herself in simple ways. She read books, painted, and took walks, appreciating the world around her. She realized that self-care was not selfish, but essential to being able to give care and love to others. Her confidence grew, her heart healed, and she felt a sense of wholeness that she had not experienced in years. The pain of the past had transformed into wisdom, compassion, and resilience. The children continued to thrive, their personalities blossoming under the guidance and care she provided. They trusted her, sought her out, and shared their thoughts and feelings freely. She became a central figure in their lives, offering consistency, support, and unconditional care. Their growth reflected back on her a sense of achievement and fulfillment that went far beyond any material success or social expectation. The father and she developed a deeper understanding and appreciation for each other. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and the quiet joys of daily life. They did not rush or force closeness, but allowed trust and care to grow naturally. She felt a sense of peace in this connection, a steady presence that offered comfort without the pressure of expectation. It was a type of family she had never envisioned, but one that fulfilled her heart completely. Together, they faced challenges, solved problems, and celebrated victories. Each day brought new opportunities for learning, growth, and connection. She realized that life was composed of countless small moments, each meaningful in its own way. The lessons she had learned about resilience, patience, and compassion became tools she used daily. Shaping her interactions and her perspective on life, she reflected often on the journey that had brought her here. The heartbreak of her wedding day had felt unbearable at the time, but it had opened the door to experiences and relationships she could not have foreseen. She understood that life was unpredictable, that loss could lead to unexpected blessings, and that happiness could be found in ways she had never imagined. The community center remained a central part of her life, a place where she felt valued and connected. She had become a mentor, a guide, and a source of comfort for the children and other families. Her contributions were meaningful, her presence appreciated, and her heart fulfilled. She realized that the true measure of happiness was not in material or social milestones, but in the ability to love, care, and make a positive impact. As she watched the children play one afternoon, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had become her family, her reason to rise each day, and a reflection of the resilience and joy she had discovered within herself. She understood that life had given her a second chance, not to reclaim what she had lost, but to create something new and beautiful. The journey of healing had led her to a life filled with purpose, connection, and love. The father joined her on the bench, watching the children with quiet pride. They spoke softly, sharing observations and small plans for the future. She realized that this shared responsibility and partnership was a form of family, a bond that transcended conventional expectations. The connection they shared was steady, nurturing, and full of trust. It was a reminder that love could take many forms, and that the family she had gained was as real and meaningful as any she had imagined. Evenings were spent in simple routines, cooking together, reading, or sharing quiet moments. The children felt safe, loved, and supported, and she felt a deep satisfaction in providing that stability. She understood that happiness was not always about grand gestures or celebrations, but about consistency, presence, and the quiet assurance that someone cared. The months turned into years, and she watched the children grow into confident, thoughtful, and caring individuals. She had become a constant in their lives, a steady source of support and guidance. The father continued to value her insight, trust her judgment, and include her in decisions that affected their family. She had discovered that family could be chosen, nurtured, and built on love, trust, and respect. Looking back, she understood that losing everything at the altar had been a turning point, painful but transformative. It had led her to a life filled with meaning, connection, and unexpected joy. She had learned that happiness could be found in the most unlikely places, that love could manifest in many forms, and that resilience was built through experiences of loss and healing. She felt hope, not the fragile hope of wishful thinking, but a quiet, steady belief in the goodness of life. She had discovered that even after heartbreak, life could offer new beginnings, new relationships, and new opportunities to love and be loved. The family she had gained was a living testament to the power of compassion, patience, and human connection. Her story became one of inspiration, a reminder that loss does not have to define a life, that grief can coexist with growth, and that unexpected blessings can emerge from the darkest moments. She had found strength in caring, joy in connection, and fulfillment in the bonds she had created. The woman who once stood alone at the altar, devastated, had found a life rich with love, family, and meaning beyond anything she had imagined.